KBP Golden Dove Awards. Your host, JC Tevez.
Manila's hottest Monster RX93.1. What's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday! Right here from Heard on Thursdays, the talk show where we talk to interesting people and have hot conversations. Welcome to the program. My name is JC Tevez, your host for this evening. And I have to say that I'm going to butcher these, but luckily our guest tonight will be able to help me. But anyong haseyo. I'm going to G Irumyen JC Imnida. It's terrible. It's terrible. Did I say that right? Let me ask our guest later tonight. Or the Hanryu, or the Korean wave, has taken over the world, driven by the popularity of K-dramas, K-pop, and of course, Korean food. That's something that I can relate with, Korean food. And soju, of course, such that you are likely interested in all things Korean. You probably style your hair and your clothes that way. You want to visit Korea if you haven't already, and take selfies at Nami Island or of Winter Sonata fame, and you've probably picked up a few Korean words and phrases along the way, right? You might even be interested in learning how to understand and speak the Korean language, whether to apply for a job in Korea, watch K-drama without subtitles, or listen to BTS and understand the lyrics. Here's good news for you. Our guest for tonight teaches Korean language classes online exclusively for Filipinos for free. Yeah, in Tagalog pa. He is popular and he is a YouTuber, and his name is Cho Sung-hyuk, better known as Joshua Cho, billed as the Korean with a Filipino heart. Joshua is a pure South Korean, but he grew up in Davao. He is a pastor, an educator, a youth advocate, an interpreter, a language instructor, and a content creator. He is also currently the International Relations Manager at International Youth Fellowship, or IYF. So ladies and gentlemen, Heard on Thursdays, online Korean language instructor, si Joshua Cho, ang Koreanong may pusong Pinoy. Joshua, thank you for joining us tonight. How are you?
Hi! Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Magandang araw po, magandang gabi sa Manila. Hello, Pilipinas!
Joshua, ang dami mo ng fans dito sa Facebook. I'm sure you see here in the comment sections. Teacher namin yan, si Sir Joshua Cho. So, first of all, welcome to the show. Welcome to Heard on Thursdays. And to everyone out there, we are also streaming live on Facebook, facebook.com/RX931. Joshua, unang tanong ko usually is, what have you been doing outside of teaching Filipino? What have you been keeping busy with? Is there anything that's been interesting you lately?
All right, thank you, JC. Thank you for having me here. Aside from teaching Korean, bago po ako magkaroon ng Korean class, I've been doing busy in IYF, katulad po ng pag-mention sa akin from the International Youth Fellowship, one of the biggest and largest youth organization around the world. We are hosting different events and leadership trainings para po sa mga kabataan, and then we are meeting people, giving programs to educate them.
Nice. All right. So, Joshua, you already have a lot of fans here. Your students seem to be very supportive of you. But let's talk about you and let's introduce you to our listeners who maybe have not heard of you before, who haven't seen you before, or who might be interested in learning from you in the future. Let's talk about how you became who you are now. So, you are pure South Korean, but you grew up in Davao. What's the story there? How did you grow up? Were you born in Davao?
Hindi po. First, yung parents ko po kasi they are missionary in the Philippines. So, wala po ako talagang plano pumunta ng Pilipinas. Parang no choice nila kasi yung magulang ko, bata pa lang ako, sinama nila ako sa Pilipinas. And that is how the story began. Una po kami pumunta sa Cavite, and then lumipat po ng Manila, sa Quezon City, and then we moved to Pampanga, and then ngayon po nasa Davao po yung family ko.
Wow. So you were very young, no, when you came here. Your parents, as you mentioned, were missionaries. But
when I was 3, I think.
When you were 3 years old, and ever since then, nandito, I mean, you usually spent most of your time here.
Ever since na pumunta po ako when I was 3, doon na po ako talaga nag-aral from the elementary hanggang college. Pero siguro, mga once in a year, bumibisit rin po ako sa Korea.
Okay. So actually, can you speak other, besides, you can obviously speak Filipino or Tagalog, but do you speak other dialects as well?
Marunong po ako magkapampangan pero marami na po ako nakalimutan and I also speak Bisaya. Konti lang.
Galing. Wow. Kapampangan, my family's from there, so I know a little bit also. Ditak mo. Ditak mo.
Ditak mo po. Ditak.
Galing. I feel like you know more Kapampangan than me, and I think your Filipino is even better than better than mine. I'm it's crazy. It's really I loved how your students here. I'm just looking at the comments because it's a comment section. For those of you once again who are listening only on air, you have to go online, facebook.com/RX931. You can see tawag nila sa inyo na Sir Joshua. Sir Joshua, yun ba yung ano? That's what you say. Okay,
Yes,
so let's
yes,
talk about
yes.
your how you decided rather to teach Korean to the Filipinos. When did that start? When did you start actually doing that, Joshua?
Actually, matagal na po ako nagtuturo ng Korean. Nung mga nasa high school pa lang ako, talagang para maraming mga gustong mag-aral ng Korean kasi ang daming mga students, tapos ang daming mga tourist, tapos medyo sumisikat na rin yung mga K-pop, yung mga K-drama. Sa tingin ko, mga ano yung Super Junior, yung pa yung mga sumisikat that time. And then, ayun, after, nag-work po ako before sa mga ilang university and college as a foreign language instructor. And then, doon po ako nag-start na magturo. Pero after po ng pandemic, wala na, hindi na po ako nakapagturo. And then, I told myself, sabi ko, kasi nasa bahay lang, hindi pwedeng lumabas. Ako po kasi yung trabaho ko talaga, lagi po ako nasa field, lagi po ako nasa labas, lagi ako nakipagkita sa mga tao. Pero dahil po nga nagsimula yung pandemic, hindi na po kami makalabas. So, sobrang nakakainip, walang mga ginawa, puro tulog, kain. So, sabi ko, ano bang pwedeng magawa natin na maging productive? And then I really want to spend my time meaningful and memorable. And that is the time that I decided to myself na, okay, sige, turo tayo ng free Korean class. Kasi yun lang po yung pwede ko ituro sa kanila. And I think, yun din po yung magugustuhan ng mga Filipino na matuto ng Korean. And last year, siguro mga about September, mga ganitong buwan, nag-start po ako magturo ng online free Korean class.
Free courses. So bali less than 1 year pa lang so far your course, this free Korean course. Where do you teach it ba? What platform mismo? Do you have an online like Zoom class? Just so for listening, how can they get in on this free course?
Actually, we are doing this through Zoom. So Zoom po yung platform na ginagamit namin. Pero recently, ang dami pong mga students, so hindi po sila nagkakasya sa Zoom. Even yung maximum yung bilin namin. Dami nga pong mga nagtatampo, nagagalit sa amin kasi hindi daw po sila makapasok sa Zoom. So we open live in YouTube and in Facebook.
Nice. So paano yun, Joshua? When you teach to, like you said, ang dami mong students, you have a lot of students that you're teaching to, yung may iba hindi nga makapasok sa Zoom. What is your method of instruction? Is it like you're just teaching to everyone and then how do you test them? How do you monitor their progress kung ang dami nila? How do you kind of gauge the progress of your students?
Actually, Kuya JC, that is my one of the biggest challenge in how I need to handle yung ganong libo-libong mga students. Pero syempre, bilang pasasalamat ko kasi ako nga po yung nag-open na this is open for everyone sa lahat ng mga Pilipino. So, nagre-recruit po kami ng mga volunteers. So, hindi lang po ako yung mag-isa kasi ang dami nila, hindi ko kaya mag-isa. So, sabi ko, kailangan ko ng mga tulong nyo. So, at the very first day of the class, sasabihin ko na talaga sa mga students, meron bang gustong tumulong sa akin? Kaya ang dami po nila ngayon siguro sa comment section. Lahat po sila, meron din mga students, but most of them, they are our volunteers. So, join sila dito and they are the one who is helping me to handle the attendance and to check if everybody is doing their assignments, their activities, para na-check po namin talaga kung merong progress o hindi. Siyempre, wala naman po kami magagawa kung gagawin ba nila o hindi kasi this is totally free and we are not pushing everyone to, okay, matuto kayo. So, free will talaga. Pero siyempre, it is also my responsibility na makita ko po talaga sa kanila na natututo sila, meron silang progress. So, that is how we do handle students.
So yung mga volunteers mo para silang mga moderators in a sense or mga teacher's assistants. If you're for those who are more familiar with the term TA sa college, they assist you in learning. And actually nakikita ko dito sa comment section, I see people are saying, proud member of batch 5, batch 6. Ilan na ba yung mga batches? How many batches have you already undertaken since the
started the batch 6 just 2 weeks ago. So batch 6 po yung pinaka-latest namin ngayon.
Batch 6. Wow. Cool. Cool. Congratulations. So, I know hindi mo masyado mabibilang the exact number, but can you estimate how many students you currently have or have had throughout your 6 batches?
From first batch hanggang batch 6, when I count the number of registered student, there are more than 100,000 students. And
100,000?
yes, there are
Wow.
more than 100,000. And itong
Oh,
batch
my.
po ngayon, yung batch 6 yung pinakamarami. Mga
Grabe.
40,000 po sila.
Wow. So I guess the question would be, Joshua, hindi ka na pressure na you have hundreds of thousands of people waiting on your beck and call para matuto mag Korean. What do you feel any pressure about being the one that they turn to?
Actually, hindi naman po ako talaga nape-pressure or parang na kinakabahan kasi the merrier, the better. Pero kasi mas marami yung students, mas marami kang natutulungan, mas marami kang natuturuan. So, mas marami kang napapasaya. So, sa tingin ko, syempre nung una medyo kinakabahan ako kasi ang dami nila eh. Pero the more students, the more marami pong mga na-inspire, na motivate, na nagiging masaya. So, mas masaya po kapag ganun.
Nice. I like that. And you're really doing a big service to everyone. Like you said, ang daming gusto matuto mag-Korean because of the popularity of K-pop, K-drama, lalo na ngayon. But I have to ask, Joshua, when did you take a course mismo on how to teach non-Korean speakers how to speak Korean, or are you just really teaching because you are a native speaker of Korean also? What is the background behind your teaching credentials, if any?
Actually, nag-aral po ako meron din po kasi mga certification para makapagturo ka. Pero nag-take po ako ng short course, tapos meron po talaga yung 2 years course na pwede kang maging certified teacher na accredited ng Korean government. Pero hindi ko po siya tinake. And then right now, I am teaching Korean based on my experience. Kasi yung mga tinuturo galing sa government, hindi siya talaga practical na na-apply. Tapos pag gagamitin mo siya, napaka-awkward gamitin. Kaya sabi ko, siguro sa mga non-Korean learners or sa mga baguhan, hindi nila alam, they don't know what's the difference between using the formal, informal. Marami po kasi mga expression na ginagamit. So, napag-isipan ko, yung mga students natin, they're not learning Korean language para makapasa ng exam or to be like a native speaker. They are learning kasi gusto nga nila. They love it. So sabi ko, why not provide a learnings na talagang practical na pwede nila magamit? So, ayun, dun po ako kumuha ng mga ilang modules na pwedeng magamit po ng mga students na ma-apply nila talaga sa kanilang conversation.
So yung modules mo, Joshua, gawa mo. I mean, you curated it. You went step by step. So I guess the question would be, ano yung, let's say, for example, me, wala akong alam sa Korean and I wanted to join your course. What can I expect like the first, yung syllabus mo, bali yung syllabus ng course mo, how does it work? What do you learn first and then what do you learn down the line?
Unang-una, tinuturo namin po sa kanila yung alphabet. We have a total of 14 consonant and 10 vowels. Sa totoo kasi itong Korean alphabet, napakadali. Siguro, nasa tao na rin na nagtuturo at saka sa mga taong nag-aaral. Pero once na ma-master nila yung 10 vowels and 14 consonant, they can now able to write, they can now read, they can now speak. Siguro pati ikaw kaya mo na rin pero hindi po abot ng 1 oras eh. Kaya siguro if I'll be given a time, I'll be helping you to speak and write Korean.
Okay, perfect. Another question, since actually you mentioned it earlier when you talked about your being raised here in Davao and how you found out, I mean, you saw the natural gravitation ng mga Pinoy towards Korean culture, Korean, anything Korean. But in your opinion, bakit kaya sobrang interesado yung mga Pinoy sa Korean culture? What is it about the Korean culture that we and you, I'm sure you're also Filipino din eh. You're more Filipino than me siguro. What makes Korea such an attractive destination and culture for us Filipinos?
Sa tingin ko, sa mga nakikita ko po na bakit marami pong mga Filipino na nagugustuhan nila yung bansang Korea. I think the very first one is yung K-pop. Yung K-pop, they really like how K-pop na naging parang worldwide na renowned group. Pero aside from that, I can say it's about the food, the culture. Yung food, syempre pagka sinabi ng food, what comes into our mind is kimchi. Nakakating ka naman ng kimchi. Yung kimchi, napaka-healthy po sa katawan and ang dami pong mga nutrients, pero po siya nutrients na anti-aging, marami pong magaganda. And then pagdating naman po sa culture, since meron silang 4 season, and then yung Korea po is galing po talaga sa sobrang mahirap na bansa. Talagang mas mahirap pa. I think way back 1960, they are the second poorest country in Asia. And then within a short period of time, naging isa po sa pinakamayaman. So, people are very, wow, paano, magic, parang ang bilis ng pagiging maunlad na bansa po nila. Kaya, isa rin po siguro na kung bakit nagugustuhan nila. And then, last one is yung Korean drama. Kasi, lagi kong naririnig yung addict. Sabi ko, bakit ang daming addict? Yung pala, hindi addict sa ibang bagay. Addict daw sa Korean drama. Kasi isang episode, tapos mamaya, pag-isip nila, ay umaga na pala, hindi nila namamalayan na hindi pa sila natatapos sa panonood nila ng Korean drama. So, yun po siguro.
Nice. Joshua, ikaw ba? I mean, fan ka ba ng K-drama? Or do you have a particular bias kung pagdating sa K-pop? Or are you more of a OPM guy?
Ito po yung isa sa mahirap sagutin kasi pagka nagkamali ako ng salita, magagalit yung mga students natin eh. Kaya, pero sa Korean drama, siguro pinaka-leading Korean male, kasi puro babae yung mga students namin, male actor, I will not mention anyone kasi baka meron po pagalit sa kanila. Pero lahat po ng mga Korean actors, actress, yung pag-acting nila is, alam mo yung kahit natapos na yung episode, yung buong drama, parang napakabitin. It's very yung twist ng kwento. It's totally different of what you think. Kaya siguro marami pong nag-enjoy na ginagiging addict.
I understand. Better safe. Actually, safe. Yun yung pinaka-safe na answer, Joshua. Na wala kang choice.
Wala na ako sa klase namin.
Speaking of your students, Joshua, I mean, you seem to be very close to them. Kahit ang dami nila, di ba? Thousands of them. Would you say that you have some, like, first of all, I think a big reason is because you're able to relate to them in terms of language also. You teach the classes in Filipino, di ba? You teach it in Tagalog.
Yes.
So the question is, first question lang, are you one of the few that does that? I don't know many Korean learning programs that are taught in Filipino. Have you kind of seen the market for that? Are you the pioneer of that, or is there really just under the radar classes like that?
Napaka ganda po ng tanong natin. Yung question po is actually marami naman pong mga nagtuturo ng Korean class na mga native Korean, and there are even mga ilang Filipino na magaling po mag-Korean na nagtuturo. Pero one thing that makes our group peculiar from the other group is yung pagiging free. And yun po yung naging branding namin. Kasi yun po talaga yung naiba. Actually, when it comes to teaching proficiency or yung teaching level, talagang marami na pong mga magagaling magturo, ang dami na mga YouTube contents. Kaya na hindi sila mag-aral sa amin, ang dami na sila pwedeng matutunan sa YouTube, all over the internet. Marami na sila pwedeng makuha ng mga information. Pero one thing na talagang nagustuhan po ng mga Filipino is we are doing it for live. Hindi po recorded, we are doing live. Meron kaming interaction, we are asking some questions, parang Q&A, tapos merong mga recitation, and aside from live, ginagawa namin siyang free. So, they are very, very eager. Ano yan, mga Koreano, nagtuturo ng free. So, parang they are parang fell in love, not only with the language, but also with the passion of the teachers na mga kasama ko mga nagtuturo. So, yun po yung parang pinaka-iba namin or yung pinaka-branding namin that we are doing it for free.
Right. Actually, just speaking of yung mga teachers na sinasabi mo, I see dito may hashtag sa comments Hashtag JCHOnatics. Anong ibig sabihin nun? What is that? And it seems like you're smiling. What is that?
Actually, di ko, yung mga students ko, sila po siguro yung gumawa ng ganong name. Like, they want to show their, parang, paano
Support.
ba sa akin? Support. They want to
Support.
share me, okay, kasama ka namin dyan. Okay, kasi sabi ko sa
Mm.
kanila kanina, kinakabahan ako, hindi ko alam kung ano yung sasabihin ko. And
Mm.
I think this is one of their way to show their love and support for our Korean class and also for me. And thank you so much sa inyo pong lahat.
Yes, because in a way, Joshua, providing this kind of valuable content, especially for free, that's something that's very rare in this day and age. Usually, there's a price on everything. So, a question that I have to ask you is, you could have easily made money doing this. You have the skills, and you seem to have the personality to be able to be successful, whether you charge for this or not. Pero bakit yung free route yung ginawa mo? Why did you go down the route of having a free Korean class instead of charging?
Kasi sabi ng mga kaibigan ko pagka sasabihin nila, tara, kain tayo. Ano, libre mo? Sasabihin niya ganyan. Gusto pala nila libre. Kaya, sige, libre na lang. Pero joke lang. Hindi naman po talaga sa ganun.
Okay.
Siguro, iba talaga yung may I've done also before na merong church kasi I even work in government, non-government, mga private, mga schools, mga institution. Pero dito sa free, kaya ko po siyang ginawa free kasi online eh. Online na nga tapos, ano yun, parang i-charge mo pa sila. Parang, ang hirap na nga ng buhay tapos ang daming gusto matututo tapos sasabihin mo, okay, may bayad, tagpipiso. Sobra namang parang wala na akong utang na loob. Kaya, syempre, ako rin, meron din po akong pasasalamat sa mga ating mga kapwa Pilipino, mga kababayan po natin. So, isa na rin po sa pakita na, okay, thank you sa inyo. Kaya ako natuto, kaya ako andito dahil sa inyo. Sige, let's make it for free. Actually, kahit free, ako talaga yung dapat magpasalamat sa kanila. Kaya po ako marunong mag-Tagalog, sila po yung tumulong sa amin. So, kaya siya free, isa na rin po para ipakita na we are doing this not for money making. Kasi kung money making, I don't think, kuya, na meron pong gagawa ng Korean class as for money making. Kasi kunyari ako, I can do translate, I can do business. So,
Yes.
nobody will going to invest something for teaching Korean. Kaya, sige kung wala, online naman, why not? Tapos online, everybody can get in. So, bakit pa i-charge if kung marami naman pwedeng mag-join and you can do it for free? So, that is one of the reason kung bakit po ako hindi napapagod, hindi nagsasawa na magturo. Kasi I could see, ang dami mga nag-enjoy, ang dami mga natututo, and then ang dami mga tumutulong. So, yun po, kaya po siya naging free.
Nice, great answer. And that's a very noble answer if you ask me. Kasi kahit di ba sabi mo kanina 100,000 plus students, kahit piso lang yan per person, 100,000 pesos na yan. I mean, it's if there was if you were really super interested in the money, it's very possible. But the way you put it out, I really think that it's such a, and that's why your students seem to be very supportive, and because they really see your passion in wanting to really just teach them for the sake of teaching. And you also seem to say, you seem like you really understand the struggles that we're all going through, lalo na ngayon, di ba, pandemic. And your volunteers seem to reflect that, in their support. And let's talk about your volunteers muna, Joshua. Una sa lahat, paano mo sila pinipili? How do you choose your volunteers? Are they the ones that are the most proficient in Korean at the time that you choose them, or do they just really? How do you choose your volunteers?
We choose our volunteers. Una, kasi pagka sinabi mong volunteer, kusang loob yun, di ba? Kusang loob. Kaya wala kaming pipiliting kahit sino. Sasabihin lang namin, ito yung objective. Bakit kami nagtuturo ng Korean class? So, siyempre, I will be opening up my heart. Why am I doing this Korean class for free? So, sasabihin ko sa kanila na gusto namin kayong matulungan, maturuan, tapos we want to also inspire you. We are not only teaching language, but kasi ako, bilang isang Koreano na lumaki sa Pilipinas, alam ko yung history ng Philippines, alam ko po yung history ng Korea, and I know there are a lot of things that we can learn from Korea. So, every time I teach, every time I share, I'm not only teaching about the language, tinuturo ko sa kanila about also the culture, the mindset of the Koreans. Paano naging maunlad? Kasi biruin mo yung, sabihin natin yung BTS, sikat na sikat sa buong mundo, pero yung pinaka-debut debut nila is hindi po nag-start sa Korea. They started in America. So, ang daming mga secret kung bakit sila naging successful. And I know a lot of people, syempre by learning language, that can be one of the way for them to be successful. Pero sabi ko, gusto ko rin i-share sa kanila, bakit yung Korea naging mayaman? Bakit naging successful? Why they're like, kung nasan po sila ngayon? So, pagka magre-recruit po kami ng volunteers, at the very first day, sasabihin ko na sa kanila, I will be sharing about myself, na bakit ko ginagawa itong Korean class. And then people are parang, alam mo, merong parang flow ng parang para kami nasa isang relationship na naintindihan nila kung ano yung gusto ko at alam ko yung anong gusto nila. Parang mutual understanding. So,
mutual respect.
Tapos, they will be parang touch and move, and they will be also motivated to do free Korean class just like why am I doing for free. Parang sila rin gusto rin nilang gawin na, okay, sige, tulong ako sa'yo. Nakikita ko how you are passionate doing this for free. And they're going to help me. So, gagawin kami ng form. Open namin siya. Okay, feel free. Kung gusto niya mag-join, register lang kayo sa ating form. Then the next week or the following day, magkakaroon kami ng parang volunteers meeting. And then, isi-share ko sa kanila. We are in need of a lot of help tests in our Korean class. But we don't need any skill. We don't need any talent. Siyempre, i-divide namin sila according to what they want. Pero sasabihin na namin sa kanila, the very first place, you don't need any talent, any skill for you to join this volunteer. Because volunteer is done not by our skill or talent, but by our heart. If you always have the heart to help the others, then that heart is already more than enough to do the volunteerism. Because that is why am I doing. Kaya, ayun, nagjo-join sila marami, tapos i-divide namin sila kung anong gusto nila. Sige, dito kayo, dito, yun. Kaya, ayun po, hanggang ngayon kasama po namin sila.
Galing. In a way, inspiration is contagious, diba? Just the way that you're inspiring them, they seem to want to also inspire others. That's how I understand your volunteer program. Let's talk about the course again, Joshua. Have you, in terms of progress, have you already run into students that have a very good competency na sa Korean? What like let's say your best student, I don't want to say best student kasi ang daming students but the progress that your students have made, how far do you think the farthest along? Can they already hold the conversation in Korean after 1 year of teaching? How do you gauge their that kind of progress?
We are doing our class parang 3 months, yung parang full set ng course. So, merong inside of 3 months, meron pa kaming basic, intermediate, advanced. So, tatapos nila yung full course. So, sa lahat po ng mga naging students namin na natapos nila yung 3 months course, right now, yung mga iba pong nakakasama ko is, minsan kasi kasama ko po yung kapatid ko, yung parents ko, pagka nag-meeting kami kasama ng mga ibang students or mga ibang volunteers. So, sometimes, biglang nagko-Korean yung kapatid ko tapos yung parents ko. Tapos yung mga ibang students ko, naintindihan nila kung ano yung pinag-uusapan namin. So,
wow!
I think, siguro kung they are from the zero knowledge, they are going to study from basic to advanced. At the end of the day, I cannot assure na magiging ganito sila, but based on what we've saw in our previous students, marunong silang magbasa and then magsulat. And then, a little conversation and then understanding the mga statement. Kasi hindi naman po ganun kalalim yung mga ginagamit po nating mga words. And sa class po namin kasi, kunyari, na nakaabot na sila, nakasurvive na sila kasi ang dami mga nahihirapan, sabi nila ganito. Pero siguro, pagdating ng mga advance, meron kaming pinapagawa sa kanilang isang challenge. Actually, every class, every stage, meron kami binibigay ng mga activities para makita namin na na-apply ba nila yung mga pinag-aaralan nila. Kunyari, okay, introduce yourself in Korean. So, gagawin nila yung challenge na yon. Tapos, meron pong gagawa ng challenge na, okay, they will be challenging parang making sentences by their own. Pero yung pinaka-last namin is, what they're going to do is, they will be following yung Korean drama parody. So, yung mga nakikita nila yung mga drama scene, talagang, they will be doing the same. Parang mag-i-acting nila.
Parang acting.
Kukuha kami ng mga ilang highlights na mga conversation sa Korean drama, tapos inibigay naman sa kanila. Tapos sasabihin ko, sige, pili kayo ng gusto ninyo, tapos show it to our students kung ano po yung mga natutunan para ma-apply nila. Tapos, alam nyo, ginagrade, I'm inviting our other native Koreans and then sila yung mga nagja-judge, they are giving the grades. And then they're very amazed kasi yung pronunciation, even the accent, yung speaking, talagang, kala mo pagka nakapikit ka, kala mo minsan yung iba Koreano, hindi mo talaga malalaman na, ay, kopyang-kopya ng iba. Tapos, meron naman pong iba na they got the accent. Kasi sa Korea po, iba-iba yung mga accents. Kasi, parang sa Pilipinas lang, iba-iba yung mga dialect. After they are following some of the parody, they really do the same accent, pronunciation. So, for the 3 months course, siguro ganun po yung pwede nilang makuhang result na nasasabi po namin.
Wow. So, ang galing the different levels, basic, intermediate, advanced, and all of this, of course, taught for free here by Joshua. For all our listeners right now, if you're just tuning in, welcome back to Heard on Thursdays. We have Joshua Cho, online Korean language instructor and popular YouTuber here with us tonight. We've talked about his online course. But Joshua, since you are a speaker of both Filipino and Korean, in your opinion, and also bilang isang teacher of the language, so tingin mo, ano yung pinaka-challenging for a Filipino to learn Korean? What is the most difficult aspect of Korean that you've seen to see within your students? Where do they struggle the most?
Sa tingin ko po is, it's about making the sentence. Kasi yung pronunciation, hindi na po siya magiging ganun ka-challenge unless na medyo nasanay na po natin yung mother tongue, yung Tagalog man or yung English. Just like me. Ako kasi nung nag-aral po ako ng Tagalog and then yung Korean and English. Parang, I know. Alam ko yung parang feeling ng mga Filipino na nag-aaral ng Korean kasi galing ako dun eh. Sa totoo, bago po ako natuto ng Korean, nauna po ako natuto ng Tagalog. Nauna ako natuto ng English. So, the very first language that I learned was yung Tagalog and then after nun, yung English. Then, bago pa ako matuto ng Korean, natutunan ko na po yung Kapampangan kasi bata pa lang ako. Sa Pampanga po ko lumaki. So, nagkapampangan. And then, yung pinakalas ko po is yung Korean. So, I know yung nararamdaman nila when they're learning the language, kung saan po sila nahihirapan. And I think that is first, when it comes to making the sentence, yung construction ng sentence. Kasi,
sentence
magkaiba po
structure.
yung format. Magkaiba po yung format. Kunyari, sa Korean, sasabihin namin, mag-uumpisa kami sa subject, tapos object, verb. Pero in English, it's totally different. Halimbawa, in English, we say, I love you. Pero sa Korean, mauna yung you love. So, when it comes to making sentence, there are some people na nagko-confuse kasi meron nauna yung object, nauna yung verb. So, dito po sila siguro na-challenge when they are, kasi pag-aral ng alphabet, hindi po mahirap yan. Tapos pag-aral ng mga vocabulary, sentences, that is not really a challenge. Pero when it comes to paggagawa na ng sentence, doon na po siguro mga nahihirapan yung mga students po natin.
Okay, it sounds like a typical, di lang sa Korean, diba? I think most languages, lalo na iba-iba yung sentence formation. You have to think in different languages. Medyo mahirap talaga yun eh. But what do you think on the opposite end naman, Joshua? Where do you think Filipinos excel when it comes to learning Korean? Pronunciation seems to be an answer, but is there anything else that where you see your students, especially where ang bilis nila matuto ng certain aspect of Korean?
I think that is in speaking. Kasi what you listen, what you speak. So, kunyari, naririnig nila, sarangeo, agad nila natutunan yun eh. Sarangeo, ginagaya nila. Tapos, recently, yung mga nagiging trending, kunyari yung oppa. Kasi lagi nila naririnig yung oppa. So, talagang nakatatak na sa utak nila. Pagka nakita sila ng Koreano, ay, oppa, oppa. Tapos, isa po sa nagiging madali para sa kanila is learning the Korean expression. Kasi nga, lagi sila nanonood Korean drama, mga Korean movie. So, parang they easily catch up. Kasi personally, I think Korean drama, Korean movie, what makes them really happy, tapos talagang nagiging addict sila. So, lagi nilang nakikita, so they easily learn yung mga expression. So, yung
Kasi lagi
yung... Opo.
Would you say that there are students that have really can maybe go to Korea now? Let's say, kunwari, walang pandemic. Would your advanced students be able to, if they go to Korea, what do you think they would be able to do with the Korean language skills that they have learned from your course now? Yung mga, let's say, tapos na sa 3 months ng advanced program mo, what would you say that they could possibly be comfortable doing pagdating sa Korea?
Sa Korea, pag pumunta
Yeah,
sila ng Korea.
can they go out to eat? Can they order food na? Is
Alright,
there
alright.
their skill level? How do you think they would
Oh,
fare in Korea na? Yung mga advanced
ah, okay. I'm not really sure, pero I think, kasi yung advance namin is hanggang expression lang eh. If I really want to have more session, pero not really enough time. But pagka pupunta sila sa Korea, siguro they can read the instructions and then they can
Okay.
understand what the other people are saying. So pagka pumunta sila ng Korea, siguro yung kulang na lang is maintindihan nila yung mga meaning. But the rest, they understand kung ano yung mga sentence, they know how to read yung mga instruction, mga Korean letters. Nababasa po nila yun, naintindihan nila yun. Yun nga lang, meron pong mga ilang vocabularies na hindi pa talaga, yun talaga kasi self-study na po yung kailangan natin malaman yung mga vocabularies, mga meaning. Pero the rest, I'm pretty sure na they can be parang without any burden, parang hindi sila mahirapan na to approach someone, to ask something, to say something with the Korean basic knowledge they know.
That's great. And that's better than anyone who has zero knowledge, diba? So to have that information that you can have and bring with you whenever, if you ever want to visit Korea, and they were able to learn it from your course for absolutely free. Kailangan lang time, diba? I think that's fantastic. Speaking of where can they, how often do you run your courses, Joshua? May schedule ba kayo, or is it, how do they students keep up to date sa classes mo?
Yes, we make a fixed date of the classes. So every batch, nag-announce kami na this will be your schedule. So for example, right now we are having our batch 6. We are always having our class every Saturday, 7 p.m. And that is yung for me sa tingin ko kasi weekend, tapos evening time, pinaka maraming availability ng mga students. So we set our time on that day, that time, and then we do it once a week, 2 hours, 2 hours every session. So for 3 months, since every month we have 4 weeks, so we do it for 3 months. So ilan na ba? Hindi ko ma-calculate. Mahina pa ako sa math. Kailangan ko ng calculator.
But every Saturday for 2 hours, balik
Yes,
parang
yes.
ganun yung schedule ninyo. Okay. So in terms of time commitment, Joshua, it's not really that strenuous. Hindi naman katulad ng mga formal language schools. Minsan they need you there every day or every other day. This is a once in a week kind of schedule, and like you already mentioned, kahit you take it for a month, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. Over time, you're really going to learn a lot. And I think that is something that every monster who's listening right now, who hasn't taken Korean and has even just a little bit of interest in the language, should check you out. So, first of all, anong page ba yun, or where can they keep up to date mismo to see when you're going live, and di ba YouTube? So I know you also make content on YouTube. Let's talk about that. Ano yung mga content mo sa YouTube besides your live teaching?
Besides the live teaching, gumagawa po ko ng mga other educational content. For example, kasi pagka live, umabot ng 2 hours. So, kunyari, pagka na-miss nila yung live, they can replay. Pero, I feel na it's not easy to replay the 2-hour session na naging live. So, I'm making content na relative so dun sa naging class na more short time, kunyari, mga 10 or 20 minutes, that they can really catch up with the next lesson para hindi po sila mapag-iwanan, masusundan po nila yung magiging next class namin. So, we will be encouraging students, okay, pagka na-miss yan, you can also follow up with this class. Nagbibigay mga reviewers, mga other contents na pwede nila matutunan yung mga Korean grammars, Korean words, and then everything about Korea.
Nice. Wow, I love it. I see your students here, Joshua. They're joking around na yung sa math daw, mahina ka din sa math.
They all know I always need calculator every time I'm going to calculate something.
So Joshua, I just from our short conversation right now, I can really see that you have a great heart. You really care about the language and teaching it, but especially you care about the Filipinos. And as we mentioned in our introduction, you're also a youth advocate and an educator. Besides the Korean language, what else have you been advocating? You're a youth advocate, but what does that mean exactly? Ano yung mga ina-advocate mo for the youth?
First of all, just like what I've mentioned earlier, I'm working in International Youth Fellowship as the
Mhm.
International Relations Manager. Sabi
Mm.
nga po ni Dr. Jose Rizal, ang kabataan yung pag-asa ng bayan. Pero nowadays, nakikita po natin yung mga kabataan po natin na meron nga ba talagang pag-asa? Kasi nakikita natin, minsan marami pong mga kabataan wala po sa tamang larangan bilang kabataan, hindi po nagkakaroon ng tamang diwa. And then, sa murang edad, marami po tayong mga nakikitang mga youth problem. Of course, not only in the Philippines, all over the world. So ako, like how I'm teaching Korean class, kasi mention ko lang po saglit, no, yung sa pagtuturo ng Korean class. We don't
Mhm.
charge. Kasi whether you charge it or not, ano yan, kung wala naman silang puso mag-aral? Wala rin. Meron nga iba eh, kahit nagbabayad sila at the end of the day, pagka naubusan na ng oras, ay busy na ako, ay sige next time nila. Kahit na binayaran nila yung session, parang hindi nila natatapos. So in our Korean class, we are pushing them with the motivation and inspiration for them to continue kung ano man yung gusto nilang gawin. Ganun din po sa mga youth na makikita po nating aspiring leaders of our next generation. We want to
Mhm.
help yung mga kabataan na nasa maling larangan. Kunyari, yung mga nalululong sa mga masamang bisyo, yung mga nasa
Mhm.
droga, yung mga hindi po nakakapagtapos ng pag-aaral, kung saan nagiging out of school po yung tawag po natin sa kanila, mga early pregnancy, family, marami pong too many to mention. So, sila po yung pwedeng maging pag-asa natin, pwedeng maging tulong natin para yung bansang Pilipinas po natin maging maunlad, tapos bumangon kung nasa naman pong mga kahirapan. So, nasa kamay ng mga students natin, nasa kamay ng mga educators natin. So, through the many platforms and programs that IYF providing, gusto po namin siyang ma-apply sa buhay ng mga kabataan para rin sila po ay makatanggap ng ibang way of point of view in their life. Of course, I cannot assure na okay, kami yung magbabago ng buhay niyo. Not like that. We want to tell them there is still hope. Hope for you to make change. So we are giving some spark, some change in their mind na para mabago po yung buhay po natin. So we are connected to many government agencies para matulungan po yung mga advocacies na gusto po namin i-implement in different places in the Philippines such as like NYC, National Youth Commission, in PNP, DSWD, and mga local government agencies like mga city and the mga provincial. And they are really heartily, buong puso, full-heartedly na they are supporting our programs. And I'm really thankful sa lahat po ng mga nakasama po namin, naging partner po namin, and especially sa whole Philippines for helping us doing this project in the Philippines.
Nice. Changing the lives of many people,
Yes.
Joshua. Very that's incredible. Actually, may nagsabi dito takbo ka daw sa halalan 2022 sabi ni Marks dito here. But to all our listeners and especially your fans on Facebook, if you have any questions for Sir Joshua before the interview ends, feel free to post them here on Facebook. But I'll ask you another question, Joshua, regarding your class. Since Mali, magwa 1 year na kayo or almost a year of teaching this. Once the pandemic is over, ano yung balak mo going for the class? What is your projections for the future of your online Korean course? What do you see it becoming, or what do you hope it will become in the next few months or the next few years?
Thank you for that question kasi gusto ko talaga sagutin yan kanina pa. I want to say some answer regarding with that question.
Of course.
To be honest, I don't have any parang specific plan regarding pagka natapos na po yung pandemic natin. But one thing for sure is, I'm going to continue my advocacy, like what I want. Kasi meron po akong laging sinasabi sa mga students ko na living for the others is the life that is worth living. So, like how I'm applying this motto in our Korean class, I'm spending my time what I know, not for myself, but for the others, to keep inspiring, motivating people to continue what they want in their life. So, pagka natapos po yung pandemic natin, I don't know if we can still continue the online class kasi nga, I know for sure, everybody will not be only in online kasi nga magkakaroon na tayo ng mga face-to-face. So, I'm sure that we will be having lesser time to meet online. So, siguro pwede kami magbukas ng mga offline and I think it's also the time to meet all of our students na nakamit po namin sa online na to meet them in face-to-face. So, I'm planning, not sure I'm planning we'll be making every region, kunyari, region 1, 2, 3. Now, we will be opening a group. So, once na matapos to, we will be visiting every group to host or conduct like a parang gathering or banding time or get together ng lahat po ng mga naging students po ng mga Korean class po namin para po, syempre iba pa rin yung when you are, pagka
Face to
magkikita
face,
kayo.
no?
So,
Yes.
yes. And yes, I'm not sure if I'm going to continue this Korean class. But one thing I'm sure is I'm going to continue the motto that I have, wherein living for the others is the life that is worth living. And I'm going to continue to share what I know, to share what I have the knowledge for the youths, for the language, and for everyone.
Perfect. And Joshua, just a few questions from people on Facebook. Actually, this is a good question and a good chance for you to maybe promote once again where they can catch up if ever hindi sila abot sa batch 6. When will batch 7 happen? Is the registration for the current batch over? Can they still join this current batch? Or what is the next batch if ever hindi sila pwede dito sa batch 6?
It's not yet late to start. Not to start, I mean, to register. Kasi nga,
Right.
this coming week, Thursday po ngayon, no? Sa
Thursday.
Sabado, it will be our second session. Kasi yung
Okay.
first session namin is our orientation. So last week, we had our first class. This week, second class. So sa lahat po na mga gusto pang mag-join, welcome po kayo. Kasi nga, everybody is open to join because it's free, libre lang po, walang bayad. Kaya wag po kayo, wag kayo mag-alala na baka may bayad ito. It's all free.
Free. Okay. Saan ulit i-search sa YouTube or sa, I mean, what do they have to type in their computers mismo para maka-sign up, para maka-register sa online
They just
class?
need to search Korean class with Joshua Cho. Every platform, whether in Instagram, Facebook, or in YouTube. Sa YouTube, yung name ko na lang, they can search it. And meron po sila makikita ang mga poster. Or even, para po sa madaling registration, pwede po sa Instagram namin, sa bio link, or in our Facebook, meron pa rin po yung poster namin na naka-attach yung registration link. And then once they register there, kasali na po kayo. You're already accepted and one of the student in our Korean class.
Awesome. Joshua, thank you so much for being such an inspiration tonight. I really enjoyed our talk. I enjoyed even though you haven't taught me Korean yet because I haven't attended your class, but I feel like even if it's not Korean, there's a lot that we can really learn from you as a person. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And of course, ang dami mong fans dito sa Facebook ngayon, sa comment section. Now's your opportunity to address your students and your volunteers who have been here since the start of the interview, who have been daming hashtags, Joshua, daming mong hashtags. Oh. What do you want to say to your students and to your now, I guess, your family?
Actually, kailangan ang dami kong i-mention sa kanila. Pagka hindi ko na-mention yung pangalan nila, matatapos sila, Sir, bakit hindi mo ako nag-shoutout? Kasi ang dami mga nagme-message kanina sa amin. Pagka hindi daw sila na-mention, hindi na daw nila ako bati. So, sa lahat po ng mga students po natin, to all of our volunteers, maraming salamat po kay Hannah, kay Vivian, kay Gemma, kay Trisha, kay Justin, kay Nestle. Too many to mention. Baka hindi na po talaga matapos yung session natin. I just want to thank to all of our batch 1 to batch 6, sa lahat po ng mga volunteers, sa lahat po natin mga students, and to all of the working committee na we call as our Korean class family. Hindi ko po kayo ma-mention lahat, kay Rainiel, kay Izra, kay Ria, and kay I forgot their names, so maraming salamat po. Thank you. And also to my family, to my sister who is helping me to teach this Korean class, and also to yung kinakapatid ko po na si Jineun Kim, and also to my family who raised me in the Philippines. That's why I know how to speak Tagalog. And also sa ating Panginoong Diyos na nagbigay po ng oras po natin nito. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Joshua, for joining us tonight. And to all the monsters out there, take his class. It's free. Learn the language. But of course, I think even more important that just learn how to give back to other people, just like Joshua does. Joshua, I guess one thing that you could teach me sa Korean is in Korean, real quick, a crash course. How do you say goodbye or good night para ma-end ko yung show in Korean?
Ang goodbye po is 잘 가.
Tai ka?
잘, 잘,
Chai?
L, J-A-L.
Okay,
잘
jai. Jai?
가.
Ga. Jai ga.
Yes.
Okay. There we go. So, monsters, thank you for listening to Heard on Thursdays. Jai ga. From
Yes.
JC Tevez and, of course, Joshua Cho. Once again, thank you for joining us. Join us again next week for more hot conversations here on Heard on Thursdays. My name is JC Tevez. Have a wonderful evening and always keep it locked right here on The Monster. Good night, everyone.